imperious, hot-tempered, extreme in everything, an atheist to the point of fanaticism. Kill me or accept me as I am, because I will never change. That's not what his enemies said about him. That's what he said about himself. He looked in the mirror, saw a monster, and signed his name under it with something close to pride. His name was the Marquis de Sade. And here's the thing, you already know him. You've never read a page he wrote, but you know his name, because we turned it into a word: sadism, getting pleasure from someone else's pain. One man's name became the label for an entire kind of human cruelty. That almost never happens. Now, let me be straight with you before we go further. This is a philosophy channel. A lot of you are young, and I'm about to spend 20 minutes on a man who defended violence, who did genuinely terrible things. Some people would say that's irresponsible. I get it. But stay with me, because here's why he matters. It's easy to be good when someone's watching. It's easy to be moral when you believe in heaven and hell. The real question, the one almost nobody asks honestly, is this. If there's no God, no judgment, no cosmic scoreboard, then why be good at all? What's stopping you? Most people never push that question to the end. They get uncomfortable and look away. Sade didn't look away. He grabbed that question and dragged it straight off a cliff. And sometimes, watching someone fall off the cliff is how you finally see where the edge was. So today we're doing 3 things: his life, and it's a wild one; his actual philosophy, which is more clever and more disturbing than you'd expect; and then the question I love ending on. If this man were alive right now, with a phone in his hand and an Instagram account, what happens? Does he get cancelled in an hour? Or, and this is the part that should worry you, does a piece of the internet fall in love with him? Let's get into it. The aristocrat who never heard the word no. Start with where he came from, because it explains everything. Sade wasn't just rich, he was old money aristocracy, a bloodline going back to the 1100s. He grew up drowning in wealth and, this is the important part, with 0 consequences for anything he ever did. And he knew it. He wrote about it himself, and honestly the passage tells you his entire personality in a few lines. He said that through his mother he was tied to the highest ranks of the kingdom, through his father to everything glorious. Born in Paris, surrounded by luxury, and by the time he was old enough to understand himself, he decided that nature and luck had teamed up just to spoil him, that the whole world was supposed to bend to his moods, and all he had to do was want something to deserve it. Read that one more time. Here's a kid who learned, before he could barely walk, that his desires were the center of the universe, and everyone else existed to obey them. That's not a footnote. That's the seed of the entire philosophy. Keep it in your back pocket. 19 years old, the arrests begin. First one, whipping a woman he'd paid. Family pulls strings, he gets locked in a castle outside Paris, and it barely slows him down. What follows is years of scandals, each one darker than the last. Accusations of real cruelty, real violence. I'm not going to walk you through the graphic details. You don't need them, and they're easy enough to find. At one point it gets so bad, he's sentenced to death alongside a servant. But Sade does what Sade always does. He uses the family name and escapes. And here's the image I can't shake. He gets away while they burn a dummy of him in the town square instead, a puppet of his body executed in public while the real man walks free. If you wanted one picture of his whole life, that's it. The aristocrat who always slips out the back while someone else takes the punishment. He spends most of the rest of his life. It was never about cruelty. It was about hating God. Here's what caught me off guard when I actually dug in. You'd assume the engine driving Sade is violence, or lust, or cruelty. The people who spent their whole careers studying him say no. The real engine, underneath all of it, is hatred of God. And that word taught me something I'd never run into: misotheism. Not atheism. Atheism is just not believing. Misotheism is hating God, treating God as the enemy of the human race. Sade didn't invent it, but he became its most famous face. Now watch why this actually matters, and not just as a shot. Think about what hatred reveals. You don't hate things you find meaningless. Nobody rages at a fairy tale they think is fake. So if Sade hates God this much, what does that tell you? It tells you his whole war is still, secretly, a religious war. He wrote, "The idea of God is the one unforgivable mistake of mankind." Sit on that word, unforgivable. Where does that word come from? Church. Forgiveness is religious to the bone. The man supposedly free of religion reaches for religion's own dictionary to attack it. And that cracks open a genuinely wild question. When someone becomes an atheist, when they turn on religion, do they actually get free of it? Or do they just kick God off the throne and quietly slide something else into the seat? A new thing to worship, a new thing to organize their whole life around, which means they never really left at all. Simone de Beauvoir wrote a whole essay, "Must We Burn Sade?" arguing he was just a guy who could never fit with religion. But John Gray, in 7 Types of Atheism, says she read him wrong. Because when you actually read Sade, he's not indifferent to God, he's obsessed. He can't stop circling the thing, and obsession is the opposite of freedom. I think Gray nailed it. Sade isn't the atheist who calmly closes the door and walks away. He's the one who keeps coming back to press on the bruise. God is a wound he refuses to let heal. What he saw when he looked at nature. Now the strange part. The part you have to actually get, or none of the rest makes sense. When you look at nature, what do you see? Probably something good, harmony, balance. A big, connected system that would keep humming along just fine even if we all vanished tomorrow. When we go looking for beauty, nature's the first place we point. Nature's the mother, nature's home. Nature's on our side. Sade looked at the exact same nature and saw the opposite. He saw 2 things. 1, nature doesn't care. Not about your happiness, not about your survival, not about anything. 0. 2. Nature is constantly, endlessly destroying. And death? Death isn't the enemy of nature. Death is nature, baked right in. So when Sade looks out at the natural world, he doesn't see a warm mother. He sees a cursed goddess. A kingdom of savagery, ruin, and death. And now watch the trap he builds, because it's actually hard to escape. Follow every step. The religious folks tell him, "Your faith is a fantasy. Drop it." "Fine," he says. "Done." Now they tell him, "Just live according to nature instead." "Okay," he says, "but I looked at nature, and nature is violence. Nature is destruction. So if the rule is live according to nature, then shouldn't I be taking pleasure in exactly that? The cruelty, the destruction, the savagery? If nature is what I say it is, then following nature means being cruel." You see what he did? He took a principle almost everyone nods along to. Live naturally, live according to nature, and marched it straight into a nightmare. And here's the uncomfortable bit. To get out of that nightmare, disgust isn't enough. You actually have to find the broken step in the argument. Otherwise, he's got you. The trick hiding at the bottom. And this is the whole thing. This is the key that unlocks the entire video. Every system anyone ever builds sits on a foundation, a starting assumption, something you swallow before you even start thinking. And the rule is dead simple. Whatever you put at the bottom decides everything you stack on top. So if you want to judge someone's ideas, don't start at their conclusions. Start at their foundation. So what's Sade's foundation? His definition of nature. Right at the start, before any argument, he just assumes nature is a cruel, evil, godlike force. And here's the scary part. Once you accept that starting point, the monstrous conclusions genuinely do follow, step by step. I'm not saying they're right, I'm saying they're not stupid. The foundation builds the conclusion. That's why people call Sade a dark materialist. A normal materialist agrees nature has no plan to make you happy, that it's a self-running system with no conscious creator behind it. But the normal materialist stops there. Nature's neither good nor evil, it just is, neutral. Look what Sade did instead. He refused to leave nature neutral. He painted horns on it. He loaded it with a value. And in a perfect flipped mirror of a priest making good things holy, Sade made evil holy. He turned cruelty into a sacrament. In his book Juliet, there's a character, a philosopher whose actual job is executioner, and he says the quiet part out loud. He argues that the burned-out pleasure-seeker, numb to everything, has to keep reaching for something more extreme just to feel a spark. And pushing a person to the absolute peak of intensity, he says, is the strongest jolt the nervous system can get. His conclusion? Murder is the most delicious tool of pleasure there is. Just sit with how far off the rails that is. He's claiming the thing that thrills him most, that spikes him higher than anything else, is murder. So therefore, it's the thing that satisfies him most, the thing most in tune with his nature. And since he's decided nature just made him this way, murder becomes, inside his philosophy, allowed, justified. Later in the same book, he shrinks it down to almost nothing. Since not doing good already feels kind of nice, doing evil must feel even better. Okay, let's actually take him down, because it'd be a cop-out to lay all that out and just walk away rattled. John Gray puts his finger right on the crack. For a real atheist, he says, there's no such thing as the problem of evil. You don't call nature good or evil at all. Tsunamis happen, earthquakes happen, stuff gets destroyed. But each one is just a natural process, no cosmic message attached. The grown-up response is to build a warning system and get people to safety. That's it. There's nothing deeper to squeeze out of it. But Sade can't do that. Sade acts exactly like a religious man. He just swaps the good God for a made-up evil one. He needs nature to have a moral personality, and that's the tell. A real atheist looking at suffering explains it with psychology, economics, history, biology. Sade takes the old religious problem of evil and, instead of dissolving it, invents an evil god named nature to carry the weight. There's even a name for his exact mistake. In ethics, it's the naturalistic fallacy. It goes like this. You find something natural, and you assume that because it's natural, it must be good. Nature is selfish. Every creature just chases its own needs, and that's good. But good and evil only mean something inside our system of values. You can't just announce, nature is good, and Sade couldn't announce that dragging us back to raw nature makes its cruelty good. That sleight of hand is how he smuggled savagery in wearing a suit. Here's the cleanest version I've got. Some biologists say humans have built-in tendencies toward aggression, maybe even violence. Fine. Say that's true. Say it's natural. Natural still doesn't mean moral. There's a Kant line I keep circling back to. Philosophy gives law to what is natural. The second we start talking good and evil, we've already stepped out of what is and into what ought to be. Description on one side, values on the other. And Sade just bulldozed the wall between them. So something can be natural and evil, natural and good. And here's the part that actually kills his whole argument. Something can be good even though it's completely unnatural. His entire tower is balanced on erasing that line. Draw the line back in, and the tower comes down. Now, put a phone in his hand, all right. Back to where we started. Hand the Marquis de Sade a smartphone. Drop him into 2026. Let him make an account. What actually happens? Let's be honest about the easy part first. The real man doing the real things he did. Gone in an hour. Rightly. Those were crimes, and no filter, no aesthetic, no clever caption saves that. If the actual person showed up and behaved like the actual person, there is no version of the internet that keeps him around. That's not even a debate, but that's the boring answer. The scary answer is about his ideas, because his ideas don't get cancelled. They're already here. You've already scrolled past them. You just didn't see his name on them. So picture it for real. Sade doesn't post the crimes. He's not stupid. Remember, this is a man who spent his whole life slipping out the back. He posts the philosophy, cleaned up and cut into clips. Black background, white text, a slow zoom, some moody sound. Morality is a leash they put on you at birth. Post. Nature made you a predator. Society taught you to apologize for it. Post. The only honest instinct is the one they told you to be ashamed of. Post. And now watch the comment section, because this is the uncomfortable part. It's not empty. It's not everyone dragging him. Half of it is people typing, "He's just saying what nobody has the courage to say. This is so real. Finally, someone gets it." He'd get stitched. He'd get duetted. Some guy would make a whole channel just explaining the Marquis de Sade's mindset. A version of his face would end up on a motivational edit with hard bass under it. You know it would. You've seen exactly this happen to lesser versions of the same idea. Because here's what Sade actually understood 250 years early. The raw, the instinctive, this is what we really are underneath, always sells. Strip the 18th century sentences off his argument, cut it to 40 seconds, and it's one of the most viral ideas on earth. It always has been. The platform is new, the bait is ancient. And that's the whole reason he's worth 20 minutes of your life. Not because he was right. I just spent this entire video showing you exactly where he breaks. The demonized nature, the smuggled foundation, the naturalistic fallacy. He's wrong. And he's wrong in a way you can actually prove. He's worth it because the shape of his mistake keeps coming back. New century, new clothes, same trick. The face changes. The seductive little lie underneath stays exactly the same. So here's what I'll leave you with. Next time someone tells you something's okay because it's natural, or that morality's just a cage they built to keep you weak, or that the cruelest instinct is somehow the most honest one, remember there was a French aristocrat who built an entire philosophy on that exact move. And remember the whole thing collapsed the second someone asked him one simple question. Who told you that natural means good? Next time, I'm putting another thinker through the same test, dropping them into our world, our feeds, our screens, and seeing what survives. Until then, watch your foundations, especially the ones you didn't notice you were standing on. Thanks for watching. Stay curious.